I received an email about something we discussed the other day on the show, and it's something Bert brought to our attention, and that was about people staring at our kids with special needs at Disney while we were there for Bert's Big Adventure. And he was very irate, justfully so, that not just kids, but adults would stare at our kiddos that were in wheelchairs or, you know, looked a little different than other kids. And as Destiny, one of our Bert's Big Adventure kids, says, different is beautiful. And we had this discussion, and I've always believed that with exposure comes understanding, and with understanding comes empathy. So if your child is never around another child that has special needs, they're going to be unfamiliar and they're going to stare because they're not going to understand because they've never been with a child that is different than them. And I got this really awesome email from a mom who wants to do better and wants to raise her kids the right way and wants to make sure that they are accepting of all people. But in their world, they don't have any kids with special needs or disabilities or anything like that. So she had some questions for parents of children with special needs kids as to what is the best way to go about asking questions that isn't offensive or harmful. So any families of children with special needs, if you would like to guide her, and she even felt bad for asking you guys because she's like, she doesn't want to put the onus on you to explain to her, but she was just kind of at a loss as to how can I make sure my kids do better and are better than what you guys experienced at Disney. So her email goes, I was listening to the segment today about the stares and disrespect experienced at Disney. As I listened, I was hopeful for some advice on how we as a society can be better. Oh, and for our families that may want to call in, 1-855-BERT-SHOW, 855-237-8746. I'm trying to raise my kids to be inquisitive and not judgmental. I want them to accept everyone and see all of the different types of beauty each person can bring to the world. I do feel a level of anxiety around situations where my kids see someone, is visibly different and ask me questions. I want to make sure I handle these situations appropriately. Is it ever okay to approach the person/family and ask respectful questions to better understand, or is that passing the responsibility of education to people with special needs? They shouldn't have to carry the weight of educating everyone around me. I agree that staring and whispering is 100% disrespectful. I also think intentionally trying to look the other way as to not stare can be dismissive. What is the right balance to show respect, understanding, curiosity, support, and appreciation? How do I teach this balance to my kids? I'm grateful for any advice the BBA fam and Bert Show community can provide. Thank you, Kaylee. And I just wanted to commend her as a mom for listening to that and recognizing in her own orbit that they don't have anybody as unique and special as our Bert's Big Adventure kids. Therefore, they could potentially be those kids at Disney that stare because they're seeing something they've never seen before.
I mean, the way that I plan on handling it with Hazel is we have a Bert's Big Adventure magazine, so I plan on introducing her to each kid, and we can have conversations about how amazing they are and how much time I spent with them and how much fun it was. But, you know, not everyone has access to that, but everyone has access to the internet. So you can find stuff with children where children with disabilities are represented, and then read those stories or spend that time together or watch those TV shows and then have conversations around it that way.
See, I have a great book, Kindness is What Makes Us Strong. And they have all different representations of kids. And like there's one child in a wheelchair in there. And I think that kind of stuff is so important. And that's one of the reasons why, and again, we have access to this. So this is of no assistance, and I apologize. It's one of the reasons why I brought Jimmy, or I had my husband bring our son to our send-off celebration so he can be around that and witness that. And I know I saw your daughter Hazel and your son Max there as well, because I do feel it's important that you have these interactions. All right, we'll take Angela Hey, Angela, welcome to the Bert Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Can you offer any assistance?
Well, I take it on a different route because I have a multicultural adopted family, and we get the same stares. Same stares. There's two of my kids are African American, one is Caucasian. And I think what people need to understand is, one, you need to have the conversations with your kids. You don't even have to be around it that much. You just need to talk about what happens in the world and communicate with them. Because I find the best thing is that we have kids that walk up and they'll literally ask my daughter, "Did you know your mom's white?"
Really?
And that's okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's actually okay because my daughter says, "Is she?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, put your arm up against the wall." And she'll put us all up against the white wall. And she goes, "Does any of us look white, like this wall?" And they're like, "No." And she's like, "Well, we're all children of God. We're all different shades of brown. So my mom's not white. She's just my mom." And the kids are like, "Oh, cool." And they walk off.
Amen.
So that is so much better than the people that come up to me and say, "Are any of them yours?"
Yikes.
Excuse me? You know what I'm saying? Or do they speak their native language? Or, we get some really bad stuff. So I think it's educating yourself, but it's the adults that make more comments and stare more than the innocence of a child. And I think it's just having that daily conversation with them. And it should be a daily conversation, that differences are fantastic. My kids know that their differences make them so unique and so special, and I put that in them every day. But they do realize that people don't understand that and are not taught that. So I tell them all the time when somebody does something rude, I say, well, they just don't have home raising. They just don't have the correct home raising. And they go, oh, well, their mommy needs to teach them better. And it's okay. You know what I'm saying? But it's about having that daily conversation. You don't have to see it every day. You just have to talk about differences in the world and how it's great to be different.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that. Hey,
you.
Anna, welcome to the Bert Show. Can you offer any advice to this parent that wants to make sure her kids are respectful and accepting of all people of just all abilities?
Yes, I would. Hi, and good morning.
Good morning.
I'm usually one to not call radio stations or anything, but this really hit home to me because me personally, I was born with retinoblastoma. It's a very rare childhood cancer. I lost my left eye because of it. I was able to save my right eye, but my whole life I have had children and adults stare at me, make comments, make fun of me. It doesn't make sense, but I've been called the elephant man. I've been called a freak. I've been judged. I have been denied employment because of it, because people think that I can't do the job with just one eye, and it's hurtful. But this is all I've ever known. So I'm a very strong person. I'm a very strong woman. I even went into nursing because I remember the nursing staff and the doctors who took care of me as a young child, and I wanted to give the same courtesy to children who have similar problems. And so I'm a big fan of you guys doing the Bert's Big Adventure because I think it is just incredible. But going along with what other people have said too, most of the rude comments that I get come from adults because I think children don't really know better, and I don't think they mean any malice from it. But I've worked in pediatrics for several years, and I even remember a mom, a brand new patient, come to me, and she's like, "What's wrong with your face?" And I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my face. I am a cancer survivor, so I am blessed to be alive." So I think that for me personally, I think it would be great. You can tell by looking at someone that they are quote unquote not normal, but you can start off a conversation with a compliment like, "Hey, I think you're doing amazing," or give them a compliment about their hair, their shirt, their clothes, something to start a conversation. Because I do not mind talking about it. I'm 40 years old, and it took me several years to get comfortable knowing that I have this quote-unquote not normal face, and I will be glad to explain it to anybody who has questions, but please don't be rude about it.
Thank you, Anna, so much for calling. Hey, we have a Bert's Big Adventure parent that wants to join the conversation. Hey, Keisha, how are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Doing great. How would you like to help out this other mom?
For me and my girls, I'm the type, I just prefer you to come up and ask questions. Don't do the side eye or the stare and point. And I agree with some of the other callers. It is a lot more adults doing the stares and stuff than it is kids.
Mm-hmm. We noticed that as we walk through the park.
That's sad.
Yeah, and I would honestly, I'll answer any question adult, kid, anybody in between has. And now that both of my girls are getting older, I mean, Ashlyn's going on 20, she can answer a lot of the questions herself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to the point now to where it's like, you know what, if they want to stare, but just ask.
Yeah.
And if some people aren't comfortable with it, and if they're not, I'm sure they could say, hey, there's a time and a place. Or if they're like I am, hey, ask me whatever you want to know. I mean, Ashlyn and Addie both have to use wheelchairs at times. Yes, but they can also get up and run around. But they're limited on where and when they can do it.
Well, thank you so much for calling and helping out this fellow mom who just wants to make sure she's raising her kids right. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
I really want to take Misty. Hey, Misty. So you're.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, so tell me what your daughter did.
So she wrote this book called Someone Like Me. It's about a little boy named Jack who is in a wheelchair, and he goes to school, and he meets this boy who's very inquisitive about him in the wheelchair and this chair with wheels and what is that all about. And they become great friends, and it's just a simple way to, kind of put it out there and not making it a big deal.
Oh, I love this. What was the name of the book again?
Someone Like Me by Sam Sell.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and then last one, is it Bertus?
This is Vikas.
Okay, that is not what was spelled, but that's totally okay. No, I wanted to go ahead and end with you because I think you have a really good point when it comes to having a child with special needs.
Yes, I have a daughter who's 13 years old, and I have a younger one who's 8. The one thing, my 8-year-old was curious as she was growing up about my older one and why she is, how she is. And yes, you have to teach the kids that you have to accept people with, at least different. And it's okay to be curious. It's okay to stare, that's just natural. So you don't have to stay away from it, but then just simply follow it up. And if you can, just say a hi.
Yeah.
And, just saying a hi, I mean, these kids have so much to give back. Mm-hmm. It just goes a long way. Not a problem if you are staring and curious, but follow it up and say a hi.
I think that's
all.
Thank you so much. I think that's a valuable takeaway is that they want interaction. They want to feel like they're a part. And we heard a lot of that on this past year's Bert's Big Adventure, that they want to feel seen. So if you're going to see them, interact with them and say hello and say hi. And who knows what you might learn and what you might walk away with.
The Bert Show. Like what you just watched? Well, you can get way more of The Bert Show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.